Hey everybody, this is Matthew Huchteman, Field Specialist in Horticulture with University of Missouri Extension in Jasper County. I have an exciting report for you today. That is a portion of the Midwest Vegetable Trial Report. We're going to be looking at two variety trials for seedless watermelon. My goal today is to summarize those reports and provide you with some concise and practical information to help you as you make decisions on which varieties to plant on your operation in the coming growing season. The two trials we'll be looking at today were both conducted by Purdue University at the Southwest Purdue Agricultural Center in Indiana. Both were conducted in 2025. The first is a cultivar evaluation of 25 different standard size seedless watermelon cultivar. The second is an evaluation of 12 different personal size seedless watermelon cultivars. I've linked both of these trials below if you'd like to check out the larger publications associated with these. I've also linked the main hub for the Midwest Vegetable Trial Report. I would encourage you to check that out. As well, there are trials for several different types of vegetables in there that you might find to be of interest. We'll start by looking at our standard size seedless watermelon trial. Here is a list of the 25 cultivars that are featured in that trial. Some of them you may recognize, some of them may be a little less familiar. First, I'd like to take a look at some of our yield data. Over on the right, we have a table from the larger publication featuring 4 different types of yield data. We'll be focusing on the marketable yield in pounds per acre. The list over on the left includes our top 8 varieties in terms of marketable yield. In first place, we have Cracker Jack with over 51,000 pounds per acre. We also have NUN 32302WMW, El Capitan, Tailgate, Brigade, Honeycutt, Powerhouse, and Valor, all of those producing over 45,000 pounds of marketable yield per acre on average. Down below, I've also included Rio Grande. While the yield is slightly lower at nearly 42,000 pounds, this variety produced consistently high yields in the 45 count category. The 45 count category that's an indication of the melon size. So a 45 count melon would weigh between 13.6 and 17.5 pounds, and that indicates that an estimated 45 melons would fit into a standard cardboard produce bin like you would see at the grocery store. So while Rio Grande did not have yields that were quite as high, a large percentage of its yield did fall within that highly marketable 45 count category. You'll also notice that I've highlighted 4 varieties here: Tailgate, Powerhouse, Valor, and Rio Grande. These varieties exhibited some resilience in terms of producing high yields regardless of climate conditions. So in 2023, we had a fairly dry year. In 2024, we had a more mild year in terms of precipitation, and then in 25, we had a fairly wet spring. So these 4 varieties highlighted here were high yielders in at least 2 out of the 3 years from 2023 to 2025, indicating some climate resiliences are still able to produce significant yields. We also had some leaders in terms of overall fruit quality. Criteria included no black seeds, bright red flesh, less visible veins, and clear separation of flesh and rind. Varieties listed here include Eleanor, Honeycutt, Jet Ski, Valor, Cato, Lil Cap, Big Jack, RZ40, and ORS 61416. I would note that Big Jack, while it did meet the criteria above, it did tend to exhibit some uneven ripening in some of those melons. Here's a table featuring some additional fruit characteristics. I'd like to focus on the soluble solids content measured in degrees Brix. This is used to quantify the sugar concentration in the melon. So if you're interested in growing a sweeter melon, maybe you'd even be willing to sacrifice a little bit of yield in order to have a sweeter melon, then this list would be worth looking at. I have listed over here the top 4 varieties in the trial in terms of soluble solids content. These include Big Jack, Honeycutt, Eleanor, and Jet Ski all falling between 11.74 and 11.03 degrees Brix in terms of soluble solids content. I would like to note that Honeycutt is high on the list for soluble solids content, and it was also in our top 8 in terms of marketable yield. So that variety could maybe be kind of a happy medium between those two characteristics. If we look down below, just as a tool for comparison, Red Amber was the lowest variety in the trial in terms of soluble solids content with a measurement of 9.17. All right, so there's a look at our standard size seedless watermelon trial. Now I'd like to check out our personal sized seedless watermelon trial. Here's a list of the 12 varieties featured in that trial, and these are all going to be smaller varieties. They should be less than 9 pounds on average. Here's a look at our yield measurements for the personal size seedless watermelon trial. Over on the left, I've listed our high yielders for 2025. We have 3 of them. NUN 32316 is in first place with over 92,000 pounds of marketable yield per acre. We also have Mustafa and Altada in that top 3 list. You may notice that these personal size melons are producing significantly higher marketable yields when compared to our standard size melons. Down below, we have 4 varieties that produce consistently high yields in both 2024 and 2025. The top 3 in that first list, I should mention, those were not featured in the study in 2024. Those were all new varieties. Between 2024 and 2025, we had 4 varieties that produce consistently high yields. Those include NUN 32206, Bolita, Excite, and Exceed. Once again, I'd like to look at our soluble solids content for these personal size seedless watermelon. Over on the left, I've listed our top 3 varieties in terms of soluble solids content. We have Prelita, Tropical Honey, and Exceed, all falling between 11.89 and 11.11. I would like to note, while Tropical Honey did have a high sugar content, it did exhibit hollow heart symptoms as well as some cracking when it was cut open. So that may not be quite as preferable. I should also note Tropical Honey was the only yellow-fleshed watermelon featured in the study. If we look down below, once again as a tool for comparison, ORS 71075A had the lowest soluble solids content in the study at 9.56. Thanks for watching today. I hope that you've learned something new that you'll be able to apply on your operation. As always, be sure and keep your eyes peeled for more great resources from University of Missouri Extension.